The Galactic Concord had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their maps showed every planet, every moon, and every species worth knowing. The great archives on the Valanthi homeworld held records of more than 800 different civilizations. Some were made of flesh and blood. Others were made of crystal or energy or things that had no name in any language. All of them had been found, studied, and brought into the Concord's peaceful empire. But at the very edge of the galaxy map, where the stars grew thin and the darkness between galaxies began, there was a region marked with old symbols. When translated, these symbols said only one thing: here, nothing of worth. No one had visited that region in over 1,000 years. No one had any reason to go there, Ambassador Cathrell of the Valanthi High. Council had served his people for 600 standard cycles. He had seen things that would break lesser minds. He had talked with creatures made of living fire. He had negotiated peace between species that had been killing each other for 10,000 years. He believed that nothing in the universe could surprise him. Anymore, he was wrong. The ship came out of the empty region without any warning. It appeared on the sensors of Concord Station 12 like a ghost stepping out of a wall. The design was strange and ugly. All sharp angles and flat surfaces. It looked nothing like the elegant curved ships that civilized species built. It sent no identification signals. It answered no hails in any known language. Cathrell stood on the observation deck and watched the alien vessel drift closer. His four eyes narrowed as he studied its shape. "Scan it," he ordered. "Tell me everything." His science officer was a being called Prism of Seven Thoughts. She was made of living crystal that sang when she moved. Her voice carried a note of worry as she reported her findings. "The hull is made of materials I do not recognize. The power coming from inside is enormous, bigger than anything a ship that size should produce. An ambassador, there are living things inside. 147 of them. What species? Unknown. They breathe oxygen, and their bodies are made of carbon. They are about 2 meters tall. I've never seen anything like them in any database." Cathrell felt something cold move through his chest. In all his long life, he had never encountered an unknown species. The Concord had mapped everything. They had found everyone. How could an entire civilization exist without their knowledge? "Open communications," he said. "Send greetings in every language we know." Static filled the speakers. Then a voice came through, speaking words that the translation system struggled to understand. After a moment, the meaning became clear. "This is Captain Daniel Shaw of the Earth vessel Horizon. We come in peace. We have traveled a very long way, and we would like to meet whoever is in charge. Please respond." The voice was calm and confident. But Cathrell heard something else underneath those simple words. He had heard that tone only once before, in the voice of a dying species that refused to accept its end. It was the sound of someone who had seen terrible things and survived them. "Earth," Prism of Seven Thoughts said. "That name does not exist anywhere in our records." "No," Cathrell agreed. "It does not." He did not yet understand how much that missing name would change everything. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Daniel Shaw watched the alien station grow larger on the view screen. His heart beat faster, but his face showed nothing. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations in silence. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. But training could never fully prepare anyone for first contact with an alien civilization commander. Lisa Grant stood beside him, her eyes moving across the data on her screen. She was his second in command and his oldest friend. They had served together for 15 years. She knew him better than anyone. "Their technology is impressive," she said quietly. "But Danny, look at these readings. Their weapons, their shields, their engines. They are about where we were 200 years ago. Maybe less." Shaw nodded slowly. He had expected something like this, but seeing the proof still hit him hard. Humanity had developed alone for 5 centuries. Driven by fear and memory to push further and faster than any sane species would go. Now they were about to learn if that isolation had been worth the cost. "The Council will want to know about this," he said. "The Council is 3 months away. We are here now. What do we tell these people? Shaw thought about the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. 500 years ago, humanity had fled to the edge of the galaxy to escape what they had done. They had hidden themselves in the empty regions of space, building and growing and remembering. Now someone had finally found them. Or rather, they had finally chosen to be found. We tell them as little as possible, he said. We learn everything we can. And we reveal nothing that might put our people in danger. They will ask questions. Let them ask. We do not have to answer. Grant nodded, but her eyes were troubled. What if they find out anyway? What if they learn what we did? Then we deal with that when it happens. Shaw straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. For now, we are just explorers from a distant world, looking for friends in a lonely universe. That is all they need to know. The docking procedure took 2 hours. The horizon attached itself to an extension of the station that had been quickly modified to fit its unusual shape. Atmosphere was pumped into the connection tube. Sensors confirmed that the air was safe to breathe. Captain Shaw led a team of 6 through the airlock. They wore simple uniforms without any visible weapons, though each of them carried concealed defenses that could level a building. Shaw hoped they would never need to use them. Ambassador Kethrel met them on the other side. He was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his long face. His robes were white and gold, marking him as someone important. He moved with the careful grace of a creature used to formal occasions. "Welcome to Concord Station 12, he said. "I am Ambassador Kethrel of the Volanthi High Council. We are honored to meet you." Shaw bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he hoped would translate across species. "Thank you for receiving us, Ambassador. I am Captain Daniel Shaw. These are my officers. We represent the people of Earth." Earth. Kethrel tasted the word like it was something strange and new. "You must understand, Captain, that we have never heard of your world. Our maps show nothing in the region you came from. Our records contain no mention of your species." "This is very unusual. We've been alone for a long time," Shaw said carefully. "Our people developed far from the rest of the galaxy. We did not know anyone else was out here until very recently." 500 years of isolation. Durrell's. Four Eyes studied Shaw with uncomfortable intensity. "That is a very long time to be alone," Shaw agreed. "It is." There was a moment of silence between them. Shaw could feel the weight of unasked questions hanging in the air. He knew that this alien ambassador was too smart to accept simple answers. Sooner or later, the truth would have to come out. But not today. Today was for introductions, and careful words, and learning what kind of universe they had stepped into. The real revelations would come later, whether Shaw wanted them to or not. 3 weeks passed after the first meeting between humans and the Galactic Concord. Captain Shaw and 12 members of his crew had been given rooms in the diplomatic section of the station. They were treated as honored guests, though Shaw noticed that security officers followed them everywhere they went in those 3 weeks. The humans learned more about Galactic civilization than their ancestors had discovered in 5 centuries of looking at the stars from far away. The Galactic Concord was old and vast and peaceful. More than 800 different species lived together under its protection. They traded with each other. They shared knowledge. They settled their disagreements with words instead of weapons. Wars were rare in Concord space. When they did happen, the combined fleets of a dozen species would arrive to stop the fighting. Disease had been defeated long ago. Everyone had enough food and shelter and comfort. It was, by any measure, the closest thing to paradise that the universe had ever seen. Lieutenant Commander Kevin Torres spent his days studying Concord military capabilities. He reported his findings during the morning briefings with a look of disbelief on his face. "They have no real military," he said. "Not in any sense that we would recognize. Their peacekeeping ships are built to look scary and to chase pirates. I have seen their weapon designs. A single one of our destroyers could defeat their entire sector fleet without taking serious damage." Commander Grant shook her head. "How is that possible?" "How does a civilization this big survive without proper defenses?" "Because they have never needed them," Shaw explained. He had spent the previous evening reading historical records that Ambassador Kethril had provided. Every aggressive species they ever met was either brought into the Concord or destroyed before they could become a real threat. They've not fought a real war in over 2,000 years. They have forgotten what war actually looks like. And what do they think of us? Torres asked. Shaw allowed himself a small smile. They think we are interesting primitives. They believe we developed in isolation because our part of space was too harsh for travel. They have no idea about the silence. The room went quiet when Shaw said that word. Every human knew what the silence meant. It was their greatest secret and their deepest shame. The reason they had run to the edge of the galaxy and hidden themselves from everyone 800 years ago. Earth had made contact with an alien species called the Architects. They were old and powerful rulers of a vast empire that stretched across thousands of star systems. They had offered humanity a place in their domain, a chance to join the galactic community as servants of a greater civilization. Humanity had said, no. The war that followed lasted 3 generations. The Architects had weapons that could burn entire planets down to bare rock. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. Their soldiers were grown in tanks and designed for killing at the genetic level. Against all of this, humanity had nothing but determination and an absolute refusal to give up. In the end, humanity won. But the victory cost them everything. Earth itself was destroyed, its surface turned to glass by Architect weapons. 14 colony worlds were wiped out completely. The human population fell from 30 billion souls to less than 200 million. Survivors hiding in the ruins of their civilization, and the Architects were gone. Not defeated, not conquered, gone. Erased from existence so completely that the Galactic Concord had no record they had ever lived. Humanity had done that. Humanity had found a way to not just kill their enemies, but to remove them from history itself. And then humanity had run away, fleeing to the darkest corner of the galaxy to rebuild and to make sure that what they had created could never be used again. Ambassador Kethril had given Shaw permission to visit the Valenthi archives, a library that contained the collected knowledge of thousands of civilizations across millions of years. Shaw accepted this gift with proper thanks, saying he wanted to learn about Concord history and culture. In truth, he was looking for something else entirely. The archive chambers were enormous, filled with glowing crystals that stored more information than any human computer could hold. Shaw walked among them for hours each day, searching through records of extinct species and vanished civilizations. "You search with a purpose," said a voice behind him. Shaw turned and found a creature he had not seen before. It was tall, shaped something like a human, but made entirely of flowing shadows. 2 points of pale light floated where eyes should be. "I am called Voidwalker," the shadow being said. "I am the keeper of archives. I watch all who seek knowledge here." "I am just trying to learn about your civilization," Shaw said carefully.
Ow!
"You are looking for records of species that no longer exist." Voidwalker drifted closer, its form shifting like smoke in a gentle wind. "More specifically, you are looking for species that were removed from existence so completely that no trace remains. I find this very interesting, Captain Shaw." Shaw kept his face calm. "Every student of history is curious about lost civilizations." "Perhaps." The pale lights that served his eyes seemed to look right through him. The Concord archives contain records of 217 extinct species. Most died from natural causes. Stars exploded. Climates changed. Evolution went in wrong directions. 23 were destroyed by other species before the Concord could stop the killing. The shadow being paused. "But there are gaps in our records, Captain. Empty spaces that should not exist. Ancient texts mention species that have no files in our systems. Old maps show homeworlds that are now nothing but floating rocks. Someone, or something, has been erasing history." "What are you suggesting?" "I suggest nothing. I only observe that you search for something you already know exists." Voidwalker's voice dropped lower. "And I wonder what a species from the empty edge of the galaxy might know about things that have been erased from history." Shaw met the archive keeper's glowing gaze. Some things are erased for good reasons. Yes, Voidwalker agreed. But erasing is not the same as forgetting. And the Concord has forgotten much, Captain Shaw. Perhaps too much. Perhaps dangerously much. Shaw said nothing. He had no idea how much this strange being knew or suspected, but the conversation made him uneasy. The Concord had been peaceful for so long that they had forgotten what real threats looked like. They had no idea that the greatest danger to their existence was standing right in front of them. Wearing a simple uniform and pretending to be a harmless explorer, back in his quarters that night, Shaw sent an encrypted message to the horizon. Commander Grant read it and felt the blood drain from her face. "They are getting suspicious," she said to Torres. "The archive keeper asked too many questions. The captain thinks we may have to tell them the truth sooner than we planned." "The truth will destroy any chance of peace," Torres replied. "When they learn what we did to the architects, they will see us as monsters." "We are monsters," Grant said quietly. "Or at least our ancestors were. The question is whether we have to be monsters again." None of them knew what humanity was capable of. None of them knew that the power to erase civilizations from existence was hidden at the edge of the galaxy, guarded by the descendants of those who had used it once and sworn never to use it again. The secret could not stay hidden forever. Something was going to break, and when it did, the universe would never be the same. 2 months after the Horizon arrived at Concord Station 12, the Galactic Concord called an emergency meeting of the High Council. Representatives from across known space gathered in the Great Assembly Hall on Velanthi Prime. There were beings of every shape and size. Creatures made of flesh and metal and light and stranger things. All of them had come to discuss one subject: the humans. Ambassador Cathrell stood before the assembled delegates. His 4 eyes moved across the crowd as he spoke. "Honored representatives, I come before you with a formal recommendation. The species known as humanity should be given membership in the Galactic Concord." Sounds of surprise and disagreement filled the chamber. A delegate from the Insectoid Crix Collective rose up on its many legs. "On what basis?" it demanded. "These creatures are primitives from an unmapped region. They have no important technology. They have created nothing worth trading. Why should we care about them?" "With respect, delegate, that view may be wrong." Cathrell activated a display that floated in the air above him. "In the 2 months since we met the humans, our scientists have been allowed to look at some of their technology. Their medical science is equal to our own, developed completely on their own. Their computers work on principles we do not fully understand. And their ship, the Horizon, while it looks primitive, can travel 3 times faster than our fastest vessels." Silence fell over the assembly. Speed was the measure of civilization in space. A species that could travel faster controlled everything, Cathrell continued. "There is more. Our historians have found troubling things in the old records. The region of space where humanity developed was, according to documents from over 800 years ago, home to a powerful species called the Architects. Today, that region is empty except for humans. The Architects have no entry in our archives. No records of their civilization, their technology, or what happened to them exist anywhere." "What are you saying?" the Crix delegate demanded. "I am saying that humanity came from a region that should have been ruled by another species. That species has vanished so completely that we only know they existed through fragments of old texts. And humanity possesses abilities that do not match their supposed level of development. These facts require explanation." Another delegate stood, a being made of pure energy held inside a crystal shell. "You think the humans destroyed the Architects?" "I think we should ask them." Captain Shaw received the summons to appear before the High Council the next day. He was not surprised. He had been waiting for this moment since the conversation with Voidwalker in the archives. "They know," Commander Grant said as he prepared to leave, "or they suspect enough to be dangerous. They were always going to find out. The archives contain too many hints, too many references to things that should exist but do not."
Oh.
Shaw straightened his uniform. "The question is how much we tell them. Our orders from the council back home were clear. Keep the silence protocol secret at all costs." "Our council is not here?" I am, and I have to make a decision. Shaw looked at his friend and second in command. Lisa, if we lie to them now and they discover the truth later, we lose any chance of real friendship between our peoples. But if we tell them the truth, they might decide we are too dangerous to let live. Bad choices either way. The story of humanity. Shaw managed a small smile. Keep the horizon ready to leave in a hurry. If this goes wrong, you get our people home, and I stay and face whatever happens. Someone has to take responsibility. The High Council chamber was built to hold thousands of beings from hundreds of different species. Shaw walked to the speaking platform in the center, feeling the weight of countless eyes on him. Some of those eyes were organic, some were mechanical, some were things he could not identify. All of them watched him with suspicion and fear. Ambassador Kethrel spoke first. Captain Shaw, this council has questions about your species and your history. We ask that you answer truthfully. I will answer what I can, Ambassador. Did humanity have contact with a species called the Architects? Shaw took a deep breath. This was the moment. Once he answered, there was no going back. Yes. What kind of contact? War. Total war that lasted 3 generations. And the result of this war? Shaw looked around the chamber, trying to meet as many eyes as he could. These beings deserved to know what they were dealing with. They deserved to understand the threat that had appeared at their doorstep. We won. The question came from a massive creature that looked like a living mountain. The Architects were a spacefaring species with technology far more advanced than what you currently have. How did a young species defeat them? We were not as primitive then as we appear now. We were younger and less experienced. Yes, but we learned quickly. When learning was not enough, we changed ourselves. When change was not enough, we invented new things. And when invention was not enough, we created something that had never existed before. What did you create? Shaw was silent for a long moment. The words that came next would change everything. We called it the Silence Protocol. It was a weapon, but that word does not really describe what it did. It targeted the Architects specifically, their bodies, their machines, their records, everything that made them who they were. It killed them? No, it erased them. Every architect. Every ship they built, every building they constructed, every database they created, every mention of them in every computer system they had ever touched. The Silence Protocol did not just destroy the Architects. It made them never have existed. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded more information. Others demanded that Shaw be arrested immediately. Ambassador Kethrel struggled to restore order, his voice barely audible above the noise. This is impossible, the Crix delegate screamed. To erase a species from existence, from history itself, this cannot be done. It can, Shaw said quietly. We did it, and we have spent 500 years making sure we never have to do it again. The noise stopped. Every being in the chamber stared at the human standing alone on the central platform. You admit this. You admit that your species committed the greatest act of destruction in galactic history. I admit that my ancestors did what they had to do to survive. The Architects did not want to conquer us. They wanted to erase us. They saw humanity as a disease that needed to be cleaned from the universe. They were going to kill every human being in existence. It's not because we threatened them, but because they found our existence disgusting. Shaw's voice hardened. We created the Silence Protocol because we had no other choice. We used it because the alternative was extinction. And when it was over, when we saw what we had done, we ran to the edge of the galaxy to hide from ourselves. Why did you come here? The energy being in the crystal shell asked. Why reveal yourselves now after 5 centuries of hiding? Because we are tired of being alone. Because we hoped that enough time had passed for us to try again. Because we want to be part of something larger than ourselves. Something that does not require us to be the monsters we were forced to become. Shaw spread his hands, a gesture of openness and surrender. We came in peace. We came hoping for friendship. But we also came knowing that you might not accept us once you knew the truth. Whatever you decide, we will not fight you. We have had enough of war. The council chamber fell silent again. Every delegate was thinking the same thought. The humans had done the impossible. They had erased an entire species from existence. And now they were here, standing in the heart of galactic civilization, asking to be accepted as equals. The question was whether the Concord could afford to say yes, or whether they could afford to say no. In the days following Shaw's confession to the High Council, everything changed. The humans went from being interesting strangers to the most terrifying threat the Galactic Concord had ever faced. Emergency meetings were held on 100 different worlds. Military forces that had been sleeping for centuries were awakened and sent to new positions. And on Concord Station 12, Captain Shaw and his crew found themselves surrounded by guards at all times. They called it protective observation. Shaw knew it was really imprisonment. Lieutenant Commander Torres managed to get a message through to the captain despite the surveillance. "They are scared of us," he reported. "More than scared. I have seen the communications traffic. Half the Concord wants to destroy us before we can do to them what we did to the architects. The other half wants to lock us away forever." Shaw nodded. He had expected this reaction. The Concord had never faced anything like humanity before. They had no idea how to process the existence of a species capable of erasing civilizations from history. "How is the crew?" he asked, nervous but holding together. "Commander Grant has the Horizon ready to fight our way out if you give the word." "No, we came here to make friends, not to start another war." Shaw rubbed his tired eyes. "The Council will make a decision eventually. Until then, we wait and we do nothing that could be seen as threatening." The decision came 3 days later. Ador Cathrell delivered it personally. Coming to Shaw's quarters with a formal document in his hands and sadness in all 4 of his eyes. "The High Council has reached a verdict," Cathrell said. The vote was not unanimous, but the majority was clear. Humanity is to be contained. Your ship will be taken. Your crew will be moved to a secure facility. And you will give us the location of your homeworld so that a peacekeeping force can be sent to ensure your species never threatens the galaxy again. Shaw had prepared himself for this outcome, and if we refuse, then the combined fleets of the Concord will be sent against you. "Captain, I argued for a different path. I believe humanity could become valuable members of our community, but the fear you have created is too strong. The Council sees no other choice. There is always another choice, Ambassador." Shaw stood slowly, his movements careful and non-threatening. "You asked me about the Silence Protocol. You asked what it did and how it worked. But you never asked why we created it in the first place. The war made it necessary. The war made it possible. But we created it because we had no other option for survival." Shaw walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "The architects did not want to rule us, Cathrell. They wanted to end us completely. They looked at humanity and saw something that should not exist. We were wrong to them, an error in the universe that needed to be corrected. They were going to burn Earth, hunt down every colony, and kill every human being alive. Not because we were dangerous, but because our very existence offended them." Cathrell's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "I did not know this. How could you? The architects are gone. Every record of what they did to us was erased along with everything else." Shaw turned back to face the ambassador. "We created the Silence Protocol in desperation. We used it because the choice was extinction or survival. And when it was finished, when we saw what we had done, we could not bear to stay in the space where we had committed the greatest crime in history, so we ran. You feel guilt for what happened? Every single day. Every human alive carries that weight. We are not monsters by choice, Ambassador. We are survivors who did monstrous things to survive. And we have spent 500 years trying to make sure that no one ever has to make that choice again." Cathrell was quiet for a long moment. "The Council's decision stands. I am sorry. I understand." Shaw's voice was calm, but his eyes held something dangerous. "But before you try to contain us, there is something you need to know. The Silence Protocol still exists. We did not destroy it. We could not bring ourselves to destroy the thing that saved us, even though we hated what it meant. And if the Concord comes for us, if you threaten our existence again, we will use it. You would erase us, as you erase the architects. Shaw shook his head firmly. We would erase ourselves. Humanity will not be the monster again. The only choices are extinction or becoming what we hate. We will choose extinction. But we will take the silence protocol with us. We will erase every trace of it, every principle behind how it works, every possibility of anyone ever creating it again. And when we are gone, the galaxy will never know we existed at all. Kethril stared at the human captain. In 600 years of diplomatic service, he had never heard anything like this. We would choose complete destruction over survival. We would choose destruction over becoming evil. That is what makes us human, Ambassador. And that is who we really are. The conversation ended there. Kethril left to report to the council, his mind full of new thoughts and questions. Shaw remained at the window, watching the stars and thinking about everything that had brought humanity to this moment. Commander Grant contacted him an hour later through a hidden communication device. I heard what you told the ambassador. Were you serious about erasing ourselves? Yes. The council back home would never agree to that. The council back home is not here. And they gave me authority to make decisions in extreme circumstances. Shaw closed his eyes. Lisa, we cannot be the architects. We cannot be the species that destroys everyone who threatens us. If that is who we have to be to survive, then survival is not worth the price. There has to be another way. I hope there is. But if there is not, we need to be prepared to do what is right, even if it means the end of everything we are. The Horizon received new orders that night. Commander Grant decrypted them and read them 3 times to make sure she understood. Then she gathered the senior officers and told them what the captain wanted. If the Concord attacks, we do not fight back. We activate the self-destruct and take the ship into the nearest star. All information about the silence protocol dies with us. Torres looked at her with disbelief. You cannot be serious. The captain is very serious, and so am I. Grant's voice was steady. We came here hoping for peace. If we cannot have peace, we will at least make sure that no one else gets the power we were stupid enough to create. That is our final duty to the galaxy. The officers were silent. Each of them thought about what Grant was asking. Each of them thought about the families they would leave behind, the lives they would never live, the futures that would never happen. One by one, they nodded in agreement. Good, Grant said. Now we wait and see what the Concord decides to do. Maybe they will surprise us. Maybe they will find a way to accept us despite everything. But if they do not, we know what we have to do. She looked out the viewport at the station where Captain Shaw was being held. Somewhere in there, the man who had become her closest friend was preparing to die for a principle. She hoped it would not come to that. But if it did, she would be right behind him. The Concord fleet gathered at the edge of the unmapped region 3 weeks later. 400 warships crewed by soldiers from a dozen different species assembled in formation. Their weapons had not been fired in anger for 2,000 years. Their crews had trained for combat they never expected to see. Now they were preparing to confront a single species on a single world, a species that had proven capable of erasing civilizations from existence, Admiral. Vexprime commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Justice. He had received his orders directly from the High Council. Find the human homeworld. Disable their defenses. Take control of the silence protocol. Make sure it could never be used against the Concord. His censor officer interrupted his thoughts. Admiral, we are detecting energy signatures ahead. Very large signatures. Much larger than anything in our records. Show me. The view screen activated, and Vexprime felt his heart stop beating for a moment. Ships. Human ships. Hundreds of them, arranged in a defensive wall that stretched across light years of space. They were enormous, some of them larger than space stations, all of them radiating power levels that made the Eternal Justice look like a child's toy. This is impossible, Vexprime whispered. They told us humanity had limited resources. They said human technology was similar to ours. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission. The face that appeared on the view screen was not Captain Shaw. It was a woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She wore a uniform covered with medals and symbols of rank. I am Admiral Catherine Blake of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human space without permission. State your intentions. Vexprim tried to gather his courage. I am Admiral Vexprim of the Galactic Concord. By order of the High Council, you're commanded to surrender your weapons and provide the location of your homeworld for inspection. Admiral Blake smiled, but there was no warmth in her expression. Captain Shaw warned us this might happen. He also hoped it would not. We have spent 500 years preparing for this moment, Admiral. Not because we wanted another war, but because we knew someone might eventually come looking for what we have. You cannot defeat the combined might of the Concord. Perhaps not. But we do not plan to fight you. Blake's face softened slightly. Admiral, humanity has made terrible mistakes. We carry the guilt of what we did to the architects on our souls every day. But we have also learned from those mistakes. We have grown. And we have built something here, at the edge of nothing, that might actually matter. What have you built? Blake gestured, and the view screen expanded to show something behind the human fleet. It was a structure of impossible size, a ring of light and energy that pulsed with power beyond anything Vexprim could imagine. 500 years ago, we created a weapon that could erase civilizations. Today, we have created something different. We call it the Gateway. It is a door to other galaxies, other places where life might exist, where new civilizations might grow without the weight of old mistakes. Vexprim stared at the Gateway. You offer us escape from our own galaxy? We offer everyone escape. This galaxy is large, but it is also limited. Eventually, even the Concord will face shortages, conflicts, wars over resources. The Gateway changes that. It opens the entire universe to all species, not just those with the power to take what they want. And the Silence Protocol. It stays where it has always been, locked away, guarded by people who would rather die than use it again. But still there, because we can never forget what we are capable of. The protocol is not a weapon anymore, Admiral. It is a reminder. A reminder of what? That the greatest power in the universe is not the ability to destroy. Admiral Blake's voice carried across the vast distance between their fleets. It is the ability to choose not to. Vexprim looked at the human ships, at the Gateway behind them, at the face of the woman who commanded forces that could probably destroy his entire fleet without effort. He thought about his orders from the High Council. He thought about the millions of soldiers under his command who would die if he gave the order to attack. And he thought about what humanity had just offered. Not war, not conquest, not the erasure that they were capable of inflicting. Instead, they offered a gift that could change everything. Stand down, he said quietly, Admiral. I said, stand down. All ships, power down weapons, and hold position. We are not attacking today. The Concord fleet did not fire a single shot. Vexprim sent a message back to the High Council explaining what he had found and what humanity had offered. The response took 2 weeks to arrive, but when it came, it was not what he expected. Ambassador Cathrell arrived aboard a diplomatic vessel, authorized to negotiate a new agreement between humanity and the Galactic Concord. Captain Shaw was released from custody and returned to the horizon. Commander Grant was waiting for him on the bridge, tears in her eyes. We did it, she said. We actually did it. Out yet. This is just the beginning. The Concord is still afraid of us. They will be watching and waiting for us to prove their fears right. And if they do attack someday, if they decide we are too dangerous to exist. Shaw looked at the view screen where the Gateway pulsed with light against the darkness between galaxies. Then we give them the same choice we gave ourselves 500 years ago. They can choose destruction, or they can choose transcendence. They can choose extinction, or they can choose evolution. Do you think they will make the right choice? I think most species want to survive. And I think survival means learning to live with things that frighten you. All smiled. A real smile for the first time in months. Humanity spent 5 centuries being afraid of ourselves. Maybe it is time we helped everyone else face their fears too. The horizon turned toward the Gateway, where the first joint expedition of humans and Concord scientists was preparing to explore a new galaxy. Behind them, the 2 fleets maintained their positions, weapons powered down but not dismantled. Trust would take time to build. Old fears would take generations to fade. But for the first time since humanity had fled to the edge of the galaxy, there was hope. Not just hope for survival, but hope for something better. A future where the power to destroy was less important than the wisdom to create. A universe where the mistakes of the past did not have to define the possibilities of tomorrow. Shaw watched the gateway grow larger on the view screen and thought about all the things that waited on the other side. New worlds, new species, new chances to get things right. Humanity had been alone for 500 years, hiding from their own history. Now they were about to step through a door into infinite possibility. They were bringing the rest of the galaxy with them. It was not forgiveness for what they had done. Some crimes were too great to ever be truly forgiven. But it was a chance to balance the scales, to create something wonderful enough to stand against the horror of the Silence Protocol. It was a beginning, and beginnings humanity had learned were what mattered most. The gateway opened, and the first ships passed through into the light. Behind them, the galaxy they were leaving began to change. Word spread about the gateway and about the humans who had built it. Species that had feared humanity started to wonder if perhaps they had been wrong. Representatives came to talk, to learn, to understand. And slowly, year by year, the Concord began to grow. Not through conquest or absorption, but through genuine partnership with the strange, dangerous, wonderful species that had come from the edge of the map. At the edge of the galaxy, humanity had hidden their darkest secret. But they had also found something else there, something they had not expected. They had found redemption. And they had learned that even the worst mistakes could be the foundation for something beautiful. If you were willing to learn from them, the universe was vast and full of wonders. And now, for the first time in their long and troubled history, humanity was ready to explore it in peace.